Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Edward Quan, and it is my pleasure to tell you a little story about fashion history. The story about Italy and how it captivated American Hollywood and its audience. Back in the 1960s, Italy was undergoing a challenge in its own fashion industry. It was competing with the French. The French and Italian coutures were in a battle for supremacy, and there was a challenge of how they could do it. The challenge with Italy was that it was quite significantly damaged due to the war, infrastructure, a lot of buildings were destroyed, but they had a lot of skill and craftsmanship, and so they had to play a catch-up game. So Italy was very, very much at the mercy of the Americans at the time. Now, Italian design has historically goes back to the Roman ages, back to that time. Very stylish, very personal. Where in America in the 1960s, we had uniforms. Men wore suits and ties. Women wore midi coats and midi dresses. So there was a very strong contrast between the two regions. And what needed to be done was that an Italian-American businessman needed to bring the style and the look of Italian to American audiences. And what he did was that he convinced a Hollywood scout to go to Rome and take a look at the city of Rome. Now, Rome was ideal for movie production because it had moderate temperatures year-round. So that was the first challenge that they had to do. And then Hollywood came calling. One of the first productions was Roman Holiday. If you remember, Audrey Hepburn, Gregory Peck. It was a wonderful story where Audrey was this princess. She snuck out of her embassy to see Rome on her own, where she met Gregory Peck, who was an American journalist. He didn't know exactly who she was, but the scenes of them on a Vespa, on the streets of Italy, around the fountain, just brought a romanticism that was lacking in American culture. Another film, significantly, was Cleopatra. This was this love triangle, well, love, deceit, anger between Elizabeth Taylor and Rex Harrison and Richard Burton. Okay, so in that case, again, the scenes of the Colosseum and all this Roman history in the eyes of the American public for the first time. Now, while there was doing all this fashion film production, Life magazine was involved. So the paparazzi were sending pictures back to America of Audrey Hepburn shopping at Salvador Ferragamo, and of course Elizabeth Taylor's fascination with Bulgari jewelry. Now, Richard Burton was husband number 5 and 6, I think, out of 8 with Elizabeth Taylor. And he once said that the only word Elizabeth Taylor could say in Italian was Bulgari. And Elizabeth Taylor, in the New York Times interview, said that she couldn't wait to make love in her Bulgari. So that gave, I think, American men a whole new perspective on jewelry. Okay. Another milestone in American film history was a film in the 1980s. A film I was told that a lot of women would not admit that they went and saw, and that was Paramount Pictures' film, American Gigolo. Now that's, yeah, and then in that film, Richard Gere had all the trappings of success. He had the right car, he had the beautiful apartment. But there's a scene in that film where he pushes open his walk-in closet. The doors open wide, and the camera pans right in, and it shows a beautiful row of Armani suits, all lined up, ready for him to get dressed to go out to work. And that was a milestone for Armani, because Armani at that time came from Italy. He wanted to be in that film. He wanted to dress Richard Gere. So today, the majority of the male Oscar nominees are now wearing Armani tuxedos because Armani wants to dress them. In the 80s, we had Madonna, very much part of Versace collection whenever she was on stage. Jennifer Lopez, again, when she's doing her pop music, was wearing Versace. Now, Versace to me is the king of Italian fashion because he did something which most designers cannot do. He designed his clothes without a logo. It was the draping, it was the fabric, it was the way he cut his gowns and dresses to accentuate a woman's silhouette. So With French, we had subtle and elegance, but Italian fashion was alluring, sexy, and bold. So what better way to promote Italian fashion than through Hollywood and Hollywood stars?